Minutes before that US-China meeting began, President Trump said he'd ordered the Pentagon to begin nuclear weapons testing. He said it would be on an equal basis with other countries and that the process would begin immediately. But he gave no details on what it would involve. Correspondents say his announcement signals an abrupt end to a 33-year period during which the US had refrained from testing nuclear weapons. The US last conducted a nuclear weapons test in 1992. In recent days, Russia has announced the testing of 2 new weapons capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the author and international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Dr. Laskiewicz, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, President Trump announcing that the US will begin testing its nuclear weapons immediately. What has prompted the Americans to resume testing after refraining from doing so for 33 years?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? The central problem is indeed why, and why at this moment? Well, as far as one can tell, this is part of Trump's bargaining strategy that he, of course, makes these threats. And it comes across as a threat to show Russia, China, and incidentally North Korea and Iran, whilst we're at it, that USA is the leading superpower, that USA is ready to use its nukes, that USA has nukes, just in case anybody had forgotten, so to speak. And from this point of view, I take it to mean a type of announcement that America is prepared to go all the way if it comes to a war. The problem is that, as with many other things that Trump does, it can have negative consequences because it actually acts as a sort of destabilizer. Russia had tested things without nuclear warheads. Of course, North Korea had done some testing, but that was, well, it's a small fry. The real point is that it implies to the Russians and the Chinese a more aggressive USA, which is unfortunate considering that they're going to meet over tariffs. And also, it does imply to China that if it wants to take Taiwan, it had better pull its nuclear socks up.
Yeah, that's a very interesting assessment because, of course, this announcement comes only days after Russia announced that it had successfully tested a nuclear-powered cruise missile, which it claimed could travel more than 8,000 miles and penetrate US defense system. And in response to that, Mr. Trump warned Vladimir Putin that the US has a nuclear submarine stationed right off their shores and was not playing games, as he put it. So how do you assess all that?
Well, it's kind of, in a sense, just one-upmanship. It's kind of showing that they're both equally strong. Donald Trump is showing Russia that he can't be pushed around his nuclear power. Russia is showing the same thing to America. The problem is that the war of words and a war of this can go further. Let us hope not. But the implication is quite clear that Russia, by talking about nuclear, made it quite clear that America is prepared to fight one if the worst comes to the worst. And so from that point of view, we have already in word terms, we're one step closer to a verbal, if you like, hostilities between Russia and America, which only a month ago seemed to be off the cards.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, you're a bit of a historian when it comes to these kinds of things. I mean, why did the US halt its nuclear testing in the first place 33 years ago?
It's all to do with the so-called peace dividend. When the USSR surrendered and its flag came down, that was all to do with the fact that now we can all live happily, peacefully. There'll be no World War III. It's incidentally that time that I wrote the book saying there would be a World War III, because I imagined that it was no more than a lull in hostilities, as is unfortunately turning out to be the case. But that was the reason for the peace dividend. And Russia also was not keen to test nuclear weapons, and America, having led the way, Britain and France followed suit. So it looked like a more peaceful world for a time. That's why they did it. And of course, whatever you may describe the world at present, peaceful it is not.
Indeed. So nuclear weapons policy no longer a relic of the Cold War, let me put it that way, because beyond the Russians testing nuclear-powered cruise missiles and a nuclear-armed underwater drone, the Chinese have been building more ground-based nuclear missiles. Meanwhile, the North Koreans have just unveiled a new nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the US. I mean, how much does all that constitute a threat to the Americans?
I think it's a very real threat, but not an immediate one. The question is what Russia is going to do, because Russia is the only country that actually is prepared to do it. It actually invaded Ukraine. It is prepared, if necessary, to attack NATO, in particular to invade Poland over the Suwalski gap, which I think is going to be the starting point soon for the next Russian offensive. And all this, therefore, means that the background is there. Please note there's one other very important point. The Chinese have an excellent manufacturing base at present, and therefore the fact they have substantially fewer nuclear weapons than, say, Russia and America doesn't mean much. They could quite easily catch up in a relatively small space of time. People have mocked this because Donald Trump pointed it out, but actually Donald Trump is correct. Although the USA has something like 9 times more nuclear weapons, some of these are of course old, but setting that aside, it's simply a question of manufacturing lead time. China has all the raw materials, it has the technology, and the situation with respect to nuclear balance could alter quite dramatically, relatively quickly, as incidentally we've seen in other areas where China has made a move. Witness the AI field, where there's talk of China leading America, not just catching up.
Indeed. And to what extent has Mr. Trump now fired, if you like, the starting gun for other nuclear powers, including the UK, France, and perhaps even India, Pakistan, and Israel, to begin their own widespread testing?
Yeah, that's the unfortunate aspect, is it not? So far, Russia conducted a non-nuclear way, and now America's made that step further. Well, actually, this is how you get to wars. Things escalate slowly, and what we've just had is an escalation. When the first nuke America goes off, then the others will follow suit. France, Great Britain, Israel, India, Pakistan, these are small fry. But if Russia does the same thing, and especially if China wakes up, then unfortunately, this will be a definite scale up. Incidentally, there was another reason why nuclear testing was halted, which applies today. It's to do with pollution and the environment. But the environment, as you may have noticed, is taking second place to everything. No one talks about the environment anymore. 10 years ago was all the rage, even 5 years ago. Right now, we're talking war and preparations for war and so on. And the key point is, if the nuclear testing is carried out irresponsibly, then it will add to the environmental problems whilst we're at it.
And I mean, you talked about preparations for war. I mean, I don't mean to sort of, beef that up, but I mean, the President Trump has renamed his Defense Department the War Department. But I mean, given the background that you've given us, Dr. Laskiewicz, do you expect there to be a sort of public backlash in America to the US resuming nuclear testing, as people fear possibly a new arms race that could destabilize global security?
Unfortunately, I don't think there will be any backlash, or not much. There are 3 reasons for this. First of all, people have sort of opted out of politics in many ways. There was that march recently by the Democrats, which everybody just dismissed, as you may have noticed. It made no impact at all. A far cry from the 1960s, when the peace marches actually brought down the American administration's commitment to the Vietnam War. Number 2, there's a sort of feeling of inevitability of all this happening. Many people think that World War III might well come sooner or later. And of course, in my books, it's a nexus. It's something we can't avoid. And the third one in all this is that it is literally just that, just another step. People become inured over time. And what's happening here is it doesn't strike anybody any more than, say, the bombings in Gaza or, for example, what Russians and Ukrainians get up to. People are now used to all this, and therefore this announcement, I don't think, will promote much discussion. In any case, Donald Trump has made it quite clear he's in charge of America, and nobody, please note, in the Senate feels like saying otherwise, or the Congress, or anybody else.
And before we let you go, which country, I think you might have touched on this earlier, but which country has the most nuclear weapons in the world at the moment? We always thought it was Russia, but recently President Trump suggested that the US has more nuclear weapons than any other country.
It's difficult to say because you must remember the statistics, which are a step from just lies. We don't watch out. What we can say is the following. Officially, Russia has the most, and what is happening is that America has hinted at secret weapons, quite possibly simply as a PR bluff, if you like, to show the Russians. It's very hard to be certain. Personally, one of the problems we have with President Donald Trump is he doesn't always give the whole truth, and therefore there's maybe no more than a bluff. However, it really doesn't matter in some respects, because between them, Russia and America have got enough nukes to destroy the world, terminate it, in my terminology, by inflicting such heavy destruction. So a few more nukes here really isn't going to make much difference from that point of view. However, at present, officially, it is Russia.
Dr. Laskiewicz, thank you ever so much. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is the author and international affairs analyst who was talking to me on the line from London.